Self-righteousness be still, breaketh stupid rest. Strangers on a barren shore, laboring long and long, we would enter by the door, and thou knowest thine own. Feed the hungry, heal the heart, till the morning's be. White as wool ere they depart. Shepherd, wash them clean.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our 2021 annual meeting for Wide Horizon. My name is Jennifer Babcock, and I serve as the chair of WIDE's Board of Directors. Thank you for participating with us online. We hope to be in person with you all next year. Today's meeting has been pre-recorded, but I pray we will all still feel very tangibly the love that went into preparing this meeting. Let's start today with readings. First, from the Holy Bible, Ezekiel. Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. I will seek that which was lost, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. And I will make with them a covenant of peace, and I will make them and all the places round about my hill a blessing. And I will cause the shower to come down in his season. There shall be showers of blessing. And from Mary Baker Eddy's letter to the First Church of Christ Scientist in Denver. Quote, as in water, face answereth to face, unquote, and in love continents clasp hands. So the oneness of God includes also his presence with those whose hearts unite in the purposes of goodness. Of this we may be sure, that thoughts winged with peace and love breathe a silent benediction over all the earth, cooperate with the divine power, and brood unconsciously o'er the work of his hand. And finally, from Pulpit and Press, divine presence, breathe thou thy blessing on every heart in this house. And now for the Board of Directors report. The psalmist tells us, "It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord, to show forth thy loving kindness in the morning and thy faithfulness every night." This year marks the 75-year anniversary of God's loving kindness being shown forth every day and his faithfulness every night through Christian Science Nursing at Wide Horizon. Formed in 1946, Wide Horizon welcomed its first patient at its current site in 1951. At that time, a gallon of regular leaded gasoline cost 27 cents and a McDonald's hamburger 15 cents. But you couldn't buy one in Colorado yet. The first drive-through restaurant had just opened on Route 66, and the explosion of technological innovation that would bring us color TV, space travel, the internet, email, cell phones, driverless cars, and Zoom meetings could hardly be imagined. But since that day in 1951, the Christian Science nurses and staff at Wide Horizon have served Christian scientists seeking healing through spiritual means 365 days a year, through 14 U.S. presidents, through the Korean and Vietnam Wars, through the Cold War, and the construction and demolition of the Berlin Wall, through the Civil Rights Movement, through the Gulf War, and in this century, through Y2K, 9/11 and the War on Terror, the Great Recession, and most recently, through these months of unprecedented public health stipulations. Mary Baker Eddy writes in Retrospection and Introspection, "The best spiritual type of Christly method for uplifting human thought and imparting divine truth is stationary power, stillness, and strength. And when this spiritual ideal is made our own, it becomes the model for human action." Wide Horizon, with its light on and doors open without interruption, has been a beacon of that stationary power, stillness, and strength. Sincerest thanks to all the Christian Science nurses, the activities personnel, the administration and business office staff, the food service, housekeeping, and maintenance staff, and the many, many volunteers and donors who have championed this effort for 75 years. The board is especially grateful this year for the remarkable efforts by the staff to maintain the purity of Christian Science nursing care while ensuring Wide Horizon was meeting every legal, federal, state, and county public health requirement, which seemed to change weekly. Our theme, "Today Has Need of You," is as vital at this time as it ever has been. Today has need for all of us to ensure the ongoing progress of this holy mission for the next 75 years and beyond. I'm happy to announce the election of our two new directors, Neil Kearney from Boulder and Lynn Reif from Fort Collins. We are grateful for their willingness to serve and for the qualities and skills they bring to the board. In August, Andrea McCormick resigned from the board in order to devote more time to her Christian Science practice. And a thank you to our former chair, David Shawacre, for continuing to serve on the investment committee. Thanks to the loving generosity of Wide Horizon's faithful donors, essentially all of you, we were able to meet the goals for the 5-year sustainability plan to ensure the longer-term sustainability of Christian Science nursing at Wide Horizon. The plan included raising Christian Science nursing salaries and staff salaries at a rate greater than inflation, while keeping patient rates increases lower than inflation. We have been very grateful to be able to do both. Currently, we are supporting the rollout of the Legacy Community and the Longevity Fund, which you'll hear more about in the development report. Wide Horizon underwent its triennial review by the Commission for Accreditation of Christian Science nursing organizations and facilities. Over a 3-day period in June, 2 reviewers met with staff and the board via Zoom, and Brian Boettiger and Sue Wood in particular worked diligently to provide all the needed documents electronically. The review was extensive, and Wide Horizon was approved for accreditation for another 3 years, following a 1-day on-site visit when that is cleared to take place. A thorough review of the bylaws is underway by the board, with the goal of ensuring the bylaws are in line with Wide Horizon's current needs and operations, and aligned with the best practices for nonprofit corporations of our size and scope. While other Christian Science nursing facilities were founded with the branch church membership model, Wide Horizon is the only Christian Science nursing facility that still operates according to this model. And that is one of the things our bylaw committee is prayerfully considering. If today's meeting were in person, you would see the beauty, peace, and order that defines Wide Horizon's environment abundantly evident. The pond on the southern part of the property is beautifully maintained, with the lovely addition of a fountain. A variety of songbirds have made their homes in colorful houses the activities staff have made with residents. And a tidy garden has yielded all kinds of addition to the daily meals. The rooms are clean and in good order, and the meals get rave reviews from the guests and patients. The diligent, loving care expressed by every staff member at Wide Horizon makes the environment a hymn of praise. And now I'd like to welcome Doug Izmirian, our board treasurer.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon. I'm Doug Izmirian, and I currently serve as the treasurer of Wide Horizon. In reflecting on our meeting theme, Today Hath Need of Thee, I was led to consider how the healing care that is the primary mission of Wide Horizon never ceases. Christian Science nurses, staff members, and practitioners are providing care every minute of every day of each year. But this important work does not need to be seen as a burden. Instead, it can be viewed as an opportunity to see God's love for mankind expressed. Several hymns remind us that this work is always supported by God. Hymn 247, Ye shall not to your daily task without your God repair, but on your work his blessing ask, and prove his glory there. Hymn 46, Day by day the promise reads, daily strength for daily needs. Cast foreboding fears away, take the manna of today. And hymn number 280, Father-like he tends and spares us, well our daily needs he knows. In his hand he gently bears us, rescues us from all our foes. Praise him, praise him, praise him, praise him, widely as his mercy flows. In miscellaneous writings, Mrs. Eddy states, God gives you his spiritual ideas, and in turn, they give you daily supplies. During the past year, these supplies have continued to meet all of our financial needs at Wide Horizon. In the church manual of the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts, Mrs. Eddy provides that the board of directors report at the annual church meeting the amount of funds which the church has on hand, the amount of indebtedness, and of its expenditures for the year. This provision will guide our report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. A key metric that we monitor is financial liquidity. This includes checking and savings accounts as well as investments. For the past fiscal year, our total funds on hand increased by 22%. Total long-term liabilities at the end of this past fiscal year were $55,625, a decrease of over $317,000 from last year. The primary source of this decrease was forgiveness of the $331,000 Paycheck Protection Program loan from Vector Bank, in accord with the terms of the CARES Act passed by Congress last year. Turning to our annual expenditures and operating activity, we have seen increases in net assets for both fiscal years 2020 and 2021. In Psalm 68, we read, "Blessed be the Lord, who daily loadeth us with benefits, even the God of our salvation." Thank you for your part in providing these many daily benefits. And now, Norm Williams, our Director of Development, will speak.
Thanks, Doug. I'm Norm Williams, the Director of Development and Outreach here at Wide Horizon. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you today. How are we at Wide Horizon thinking metaphysically about substance and supply? What are some human steps we are taking as a result? Over the years, I've learned through my study and prayer about supply and Christian Science some helpful standpoints. When I've been experiencing a lack of human supply, I've prayed to have a right sense of spiritual substance and to see the continuity of good in God's kingdom here on earth. Likewise, I've also learned when I have an abundance of supply, I continue to pray with the same level of attention about it. The point here is that one does not let up on praying about supply in the good times when one might be tempted to relax. But why not let up? Well, I think it is like in Christian Science that we don't look to the body for our sense of health, whether it appears to the material senses to be good or bad. Mrs. Eddy writes in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, "Health is not a condition of matter, but of mind, nor can the material senses bear reliable testimony on the subject of health." So instead, in both cases, good and bad, we understand our perfect health comes from Spirit, God, and not from a material body, where the material senses always give a false report. Though we may take good care of the human body, we don't look to it as the final arbiter of our health. Spirit is the sole source of our good health and abundant supply. So it is with Wide Horizon and its fundraising. Whether finances seem humanly good or bad, in science we don't look to the amount of money we have for our sense of healthy supply. Instead, we see our substance as a spiritual constant supplied by God and not subject to material conditions such as the ups and downs of the economy and the stock market. In fact, Mrs. Eddy answers the question, what is substance? In part, truth, life, and love are substance, as the scriptures use this word in Hebrews, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Spirit, the synonym of mind, soul, or God, is the only real substance. In A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens wrote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. In some ways, we are now in the best of times at Wide. Indeed, Wide Horizon is in its best financial shape ever. We met our goal of receiving $6 million from the Wide Appeal for Sustainability campaign, and it helped us grow our reserves or investments to over 5.8 million. Now, some might consider that a superabundance of supply. But at the same time, in other ways, we are also in difficult times. For a variety of reasons, we have a monthly deficit of approximately $80,000, or about $1 million a year, to overcome. We need to raise that amount each year to cover our operational expenses and not draw down on Wide Horizon's reserves. We prefer to keep the reserves as they are to generate investment income towards operations. Without raising the million each year, our reserves could be drawn down quickly and to a great extent. I'm pleased to report that in fiscal year 2021, we received about $1,025,000 in funds to cover most of the expenses, so we didn't have to draw down reserves too much. This amount consisted of about $270,000 in individual giving, about $495,000 from estates, $80,000 in church gifts, and $180,000 in grants from foundations. So with the $1 million deficit each year, we continue to pray about supply and fundraise as much as ever for the short term as well as the long term. And we have some new developments to tell you about to help sustain Wide in the long term. Our aim in the long term is to find a way to reduce the annual deficit by $500,000 through generating more investment income. To cut the amount of the $1 million deficit in half, we've created a new goal of raising $10 million over a long, indefinite period of time to put aside in a new fund called the Longevity Fund. Although not an endowment, the fund is set aside to focus on generating investment income. It has an eventual goal of $500,000 earned annually that we will use in the future to fund salaries of over 40 employees, ongoing maintenance, food service, and other expenses, such as providing temporary housing to new Christian Science nurses at Wide Horizon. In special circumstances, the Wide Horizon Board of Directors may also utilize these assets for capital projects or strategic investments, such as an emergency funding need. But the main purpose of the fund is for it not to be touched for the present time and be used in the distant future to pay operational expenses. However, we will continue to depend on regular contributions to the annual fund through the spring and year-end appeals to cover our current operational expenses. To reach our goal of $10 million for the Longevity Fund, estate gifts will play a major role. To acknowledge those who have put us in their will and who tell us they have, we created the Wide Horizon Legacy Community, which we announced through a mailing in August. Members will be listed on our website, will be invited to attend special events, and receive special communications. We hope members of the Legacy Community will designate their legacy gift to the Longevity Fund. However, we also welcome special gifts made during your lifetime to support the Longevity Fund. In line with its focus on estate gifts, which in any given year make up 25% to 45% of our revenue, you will see from us mailings on planned gifts, and we will request personal visits to discuss them. To conclude, we would like to demonstrate this year the continuity of God's goodness with regards to our substance and supply. For as Mrs. Eddy writes, substance is that which is eternal and incapable of discord and decay. So, in reality, there is no discord or decay in our substance. No ups and downs, no bad and good mortal times, but only spiritual and eternal and continuous good. I'd like to introduce Brian Boettiger, our Executive Director.
Thanks, Norm. Yes, I'm Brian Boettiger, Executive Director of Wide Horizon. I'm still here. Before I get going, I'd really like to thank the current board and all the previous board members I've worked with, particularly Rick Davis, our dear friend who passed on recently. I'll begin with this from the Gospel of Mark. With God, all things are possible. I'm certain God has made it possible for me to still be filling my role at Wide Horizon in support of Christian Science nursing. I imagine God has made it possible for all of us to be listening today. And I believe that God, love, enables us to learn new lessons of and in love, perhaps practicing a greater degree of Christian love in our lives. And I hope through God's grace, you've stayed in good health during the past year. For as Apostle Paul promised, our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Our theme this year is derived from the words by William H. Burleigh of a hymn in the Christian Science hymnal. Hymn 6 reads as follows: "Abide not in the realm of dreams, O man, however fair it seems, but with clear eye the present scan and hear the call of God and man. Think not in sleep to fold thy hands, forgetful of thy Lord's commands. From duty's claims no life is free. Behold, today hath need of thee. The present hour allots thy task, for present strength and patience ask, and trust his love, whose sure supply meets all thy need abundantly." Yes, today and every day definitely needs you. Your best qualities are needed. Humble honesty is needed. Innate innocence is needed. Pure love is needed. Consistent patience and steadfast strength are needed. Tender kindness, empathy, and compassion are needed. Faith, hope, charity are needed. Heartfelt prayers are needed. And through divine love, all your needs are met abundantly. Always remember, you are needed. Well, the book of Psalms is often such a resource of comfort, and Psalm 9 includes, "The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble." And from Psalm 91 we read, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High abides under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him I will trust." At Wide Horizon, it is clear that God, divine love, is our fortress and refuge. Our Heavenly Father, divine mind, is always with us, communicating to us, to the Christ within us. In addition to Christian Science nursing services, we strive to provide excellent support services and programs for all of our guests. Indeed, patients deserve the best thought we can offer. Our best begins with compassionate, good, righteous thinking. This righteous thought should begin with God and be of the Christ within each of us. Those of us who are students of Christian Science work to be sincere Christians first and foremost. Therefore, we can be better scientists of pure Christianity by maintaining thought and practicing from this holy basis of understanding divine love. Among the meanings of maintain are to hold, to preserve, to support, to sustain, to affirm. At Wide Horizon, we are here to offer and maintain a healing atmosphere for all honest, sincere seekers of truth who desire to rely solely on God and Christian Science. The ministry of Christian Science, nursing, fully embraces spiritual healing. Healing, or the restoring to a sound state, begins with thought, which leads to restoration and soundness. Spiritual healing is the revealing of what already is present. spiritual reality, and well-being. A healing thought often includes forgiveness and purity. Healing may require qualities of gratitude and thankfulness, joy and cheerfulness, compassion and love, understanding and wisdom, humility and meekness. Wide Horizon is the expression of an idea that continues to help and has helped meet many needs through its activity of love for many years. Wide Horizon is a Christian Science nursing ministry and an environment of love expressed for our community, field, and beyond. Each of us can rejoice in and join together in this important work, to witness more of God's work in what we do, individually and collectively. Certainly, we must often watch and pray, practicing to love God and love one another throughout each day. And we can know that God, one mind, enables each of us to do our very best. Well, this summer, the Commission for Accreditation of Christian Science nursing organizations and facilities reviewed or inspected Wide Horizon remotely. Scores of documents were shared online. Interviews with staff and board occurred via Zoom. We received gracious comments to improve in certain areas, which we did wholeheartedly. And although Wide Horizon passed this test, we look forward to an on-site visit in the future by the Commission to confirm all of our good works. To date, multiple daily activities for residents are a blessing, as is the regulated communal dining once a day. The meals are prepared with love and quite delicious. Staff continually provide outstanding, heartfelt services. Inspirational gatherings and programs consistently bless. Our residents and guests feel supported and loved, as they often say at our residence meetings on a monthly basis. Our field continues to support Wide Horizon, though we always welcome new donors and volunteers. Wide Horizon has had more than 70 years of continuity, providing perpetual programs and services of Christian Science nursing to the Christian Science community. There have been many challenges to overcome and changes to navigate. A guiding principle, certainly in the past 20 years, is to practice from the basis of wisdom, economy, and brotherly love, seeking prayer-based solutions whenever possible. To me, this uninterrupted activity is a remarkable history of individual demonstrations and collective teamwork. These qualities of wisdom, economy, and brotherly love are a solid foundation and consistently have been my modus operandi in my professional work at Wide Horizon. Mrs. Eddy wrote in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, "Spirit diversifies, classifies, and individualizes all thoughts, which are as eternal as the mind conceiving them. But the intelligence, existence, and continuity of all individuality remain in God, who is the divinely creative principle thereof." And on page 77 of the Church Manual, she writes, God's requirement. Section 5. God requires wisdom, economy, and brotherly love to characterize all the proceedings of the members of the Mother Church, the first church of Christ scientists. We strive to perpetually and continually meet this requirement at Wide Horizon. In Mrs. Eddy's The New Birth, we are reminded that the spiritual sense of life and its grand pursuits is of itself a bliss, health-giving, and joy-inspiring. This sense of life illumines our pathway with the radiance of divine love, heals man spontaneously, morally, and physically. Exhaling the aroma of Jesus' own words, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Every day, therefore, each of us can strive to emulate our Master, Christ Jesus, who knew and taught that God is our Heavenly Father, our sole provider. We can work in spirit. We can rest in the truth. We can cherish our spiritual sense of being, and we can recognize this pure sense increases with simple acknowledgments of God's presence and power throughout the day. We can embrace the many continuous moments of our oneness with God, life. We can live and labor in the atmosphere of love, breathing within the inspiration of spirit. And we can heal from this basis of holy, divine love. Then we will see and witness more healing as the revealing of love's reality, revealing unto us God's Spirit's spiritual perfect man. As mentioned, Scripture informs us that the Christ is within us. Effective Christian Science nursing embodies this Christly consciousness, which heals. Divine principle, love, heals. Our Heavenly Father, Mother God heals. We work together to demonstrate, to show, or prove to be certain Christian Science, and live fuller lives reflecting divine love. There are abundant, bountiful blessings from this endeavor. This is a ministry which blesses you, your families, your neighbors, the world, and those we care for at Wide Horizon. This is indeed good labor, and yes, you are needed. To conclude, Mrs. Eddy wrote, "The practice of Christian Science is not an exception to the general rule, that there is no excellence without labor in a direct line. Be excellent." Thank you for your continual prayers and ongoing financial support. And now, it's my privilege to introduce Wide Horizon's esteemed Director of Christian Science Nursing, Sue Wood. Take it away, Sue.
Thank you, Brian. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm wishing that I could see all your lovely faces. My name is Sue Wood. I'm the Director of Christian Science Nursing at Wide Horizon. And I have the privilege of leading an excellent group of Christian Science nurses as we minister to the needs of Christian Scientists in our multi-state area and beyond. In order to prepare this talk, I asked myself, what inspires me about Christian Science nursing? Well, there are a lot of things. Some days it's about the patients, and some days it's the Christian Science nurses. Always, it's the never absent Christ light, so evident in our work. It's inspiring to realize that we have Christian Science nurses coming in day after day with a joyful attitude, expectant of good, to assist their fellow church members who happen to be working with a challenge of some sort. These active Christian Science workers are not burdened with the challenges of the patients, but rather they're gaining in strength daily as they put down suggestions of error, fear, disability, even death. Mrs. Eddy included the following statement in the church manual bylaw, which guides and defines our work. Quote, "A member of the Mother Church who represents himself or herself as a Christian Science nurse shall be one who has a demonstrable knowledge of Christian Science practice." There's a good reason she put that statement first in the bylaw, because everything else flows from that demonstrable knowledge of Christian Science practice. Without it, our work would fall to the level of human effort. It would lack the authority and power of divine love that does the healing. One of our guests, or patients, recently commented that when she came to Wide Horizon, she thought it would be kind of like going to a restaurant, where people wait on you and tend to your needs, etc., but not really caring about you. But now that she's been here for a while, she's learned that the staff really care about us. The family member of another woman who had a brief stay with us for spiritual renewal reported to his sister, "Wide Horizon is unlike any other care facility. The amount of love and kindness that Christian Science shows is instantly noticeable and is far above anything you'd get anywhere else. It's so comforting to know Mom is getting that kind of love." And the guest herself wrote, "Just walking into Wide Horizon's front door my first day was a healing experience. For over a year, I'd been praying diligently that the false claim of material sense of aging and limited mobility could not be true about my idea as God's flawless reflection. One of my constant prayers was to be absent from the body and present with the Lord. That prayer was answered by the end of the first day. I realized I'd barely given any thought to discomfort or how my leg was doing, but rather my thought was so occupied with the immense love and care given by each staff member I'd met that day. What a happy healing start." Later during her stay, seemingly out of the blue, she remembered a resentment she'd held against a woman who'd been verbally quite mean to her gentle, sweet mother well over 60 years ago. She knew she had to forgive that woman right then and know that the incident could never have happened in God's kingdom. That was a weight off that she didn't even realize she was carrying. At one of our Thursday testimony meetings, a guest shared that she had awakened in the night with a tremendous headache. She turned on the light and opened Science and Health, seemingly at random. After reading for a short while, the headache was completely gone, and she happily turned off the light and went back to sleep. Dominion over the beliefs of aging, fear, contagion, pain, disability, loneliness, separation. This is what the staff at Wide Horizon are privileged to witness and support every day. Our group comprises 17 Christian Science nurses, about a third of which work part-time, and 3 core members of the activities staff, who all work part-time. Helping our guests to fill up with a full measure of joy, spiritual understanding, expectancy of good, alertness, interest in life, and camaraderie. This is our opportunity and our reward. The rest of the bylaw in our church manual states that the Christian Science nurse shall be one who thoroughly understands the practical wisdom necessary in the sick room and who can take proper care of the sick. To this end, the last several months have been active ones for our Christian Science nurse training program. Our students are making good progress in their understanding and skills. We're so grateful to have added 5 new students to our team in the last couple of years. We continue to need additional experienced journalisted Christian Science nurses to rebalance our team as the pace of Christian Science nurses retiring or relocating has exceeded the number of new additions. In case you're wondering, we're very carefully admitting new patients when we have an opening. Usually the limiting factor is whether we have enough Christian Science nurses to give the care needed. If you have ever contemplated the idea of Christian Science nursing as a career, this would be an excellent time to check out what Wide Horizon can provide in the way of training. Hopefully, many of you are aware of the organization called the National Fund for Christian Science Nursing. This group works under the auspices of the Principal Foundation. They're helping Christian scientists throughout the country to afford the blessing of Christian Science nursing care, both at home and in facilities like Wide Horizon. Finances no longer need to stand in the way of anyone obtaining help from a Christian Science nurse. The group's website gives additional information about different ways they can be helpful. That website is www.nfcsn.org. Since we can't visit in person today, I hope you'll give us a call if you have any questions about Wide Horizon or perhaps about a situation where Christian Science nursing might be helpful. Sometimes we can give suggestions over the phone that will meet the need. And remember, we're working 24/7, so even in the middle of the night, there's someone there to take your call. Thank you all for your interest and support.
Hi, I'm Allison Mosley, a Christian Science nurse at Wide Horizon. I'm so grateful to work with wonderful nurses and everyone else at Wide Horizon, from housekeeping, maintenance, administration, and our volunteers, and on night shift, working with our dear friends from Africa. It's such a blessing with their deep spiritual sense, their kindness, their gentleness, and I look forward to working with them for many more years.
I've been a Christian Science nurse at Wide Horizon since 2019 up to date.
When I visited Wide Horizon in 2016, I met Sue and a few other nurses, and I loved it here. Everyone was so loving. I loved the environment at work too. I knew that I wanted to move here after graduation from pre.
I was inspired to become a Christian Science nurse by my late brother. I remember when he visited me back home, I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't eat, and I couldn't read the Bible lesson for myself. He shared some truth with me from the Bible and Science and Health with the Keys to Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. He encouraged me to eat. He helped me to get up of my bed. We had a short walk, which was full of love and cheerfulness. By the end of the day, I found myself having a complete healing.
It is a blessing to help fellow church members as my everyday job and give back to Christian Science at the same time.
I recommend becoming a Christian Science nurse as one of the ways of expressing God's love for one another and giving back to God.
The application process was very straightforward, and I am grateful that I didn't feel overwhelmed by it.
I just went online, I applied at Wide Horizon, and I got a chance to speak with the Director of Nursing, Sue Woods, who was so loving and welcoming.
If you haven't received any training, Wide Horizon offers Christian Science nursing training too. So what are you waiting for? Go to widehorizon.org and apply.
Hi, I'm Sue Wood. I'm the Director of Christian Science Nursing at Wide Horizon. There can be times when a Christian scientist needs extra support, whether for a child or a parent or for themselves. And there's all kinds of answers available out there, but we want to be careful about where we turn for those answers, because most of what's available is medical information. It's based on man as matter. We know man is spiritual, and matter doesn't really have much that it can offer. This is where Wide Horizon comes into play. Wide Horizon is a sanctuary, a refuge for moral thinking, a spiritually enlightened atmosphere. Our purpose is to support anyone who's relying on Christian Science treatment while they work for healing. Our Christian Science nurses are specially trained and uniquely qualified to help meet whatever needs you might be working with. They're qualified because they're also practicing Christian scientists who are demonstrating Christian Science daily in their own lives. They are trained in simple, practical skills to meet a wide variety of human needs. When those human needs are taken care of, it enables the person to focus on their spiritual identity, on their relationship to God, instead of on the material body. Our primary work at Wide Horizon is in caring for individuals who need round-the-clock assistance. Some of them just need a little bit of care, others may need significantly more. There may be a need for assistance with mobility, with being fed. The need might be for cleansing and bandaging of a wound, and sometimes there are mental issues. Whatever the need is, we're always working to see our patients through the eyes of love, not fearfully or critically, but really seeing how God is caring for his dear child. In addition to what we're doing in the main building with around-the-clock care, we have 5 rooms available in Horizon House for rest and study or supervised independent living. We provide meals, housekeeping, laundry, and the individuals are welcome to participate in any of the activities that are going on in the main building. Of course, there's also the loving, supportive Christian Science atmosphere 24/7. Rest and study is for a shorter term need, whereas supervised independent living can be of longer duration. In either case, the individuals need to be fully able to take care of themselves. Another service Wide Horizon has is outpatient care. This is for somebody who can get to the facility for a need that can be met in a fairly short amount of time, something like cleansing and bandaging of a wound, and then they can head on home and take care of themselves. It's true, a person could go to the emergency room or an urgent care clinic, but the need for reassurance as to man's unbroken relationship to his Father, Mother, God, and the need for confidence in the healing power of Christian Science can best be met through the tender administration of Christian Science nursing. Please give us a call if you have a need that you think we might be able to help you with. We'd be happy to set up an appointment for you to visit, and we might even be able to meet the need over the phone.
All the times that I've come to Wide Horizon for annual meetings and for hymn sings, never once did it ever enter my thought that I could be a Christian Science nurse. But here I am, and I'm so grateful for it.
Wide Horizon encourages our individual practice of Christian Science by letting us express our God-given talents for our love for God and how we express that love to our fellow man.
The thing that I love most about working at Wide Horizon is seeing all of the healings happen, the progress that people make.
I'm able to practice what Mary Baker Eddy stated in Science and Health with the Key to the Scriptures. What we most need is the prayer of fervent desire for growth and grace, expressed in patience, meekness, love, and good deeds.
I love the staff, the other nurses who go the extra mile every single day.
It's just meeting people from all over the world. It's a really, really diverse group of nurses, lots of different backgrounds.
I love the administration. It's supportive. It's ingenuity in solving problems. It's caring atmosphere.
So you can feel nurtured and encouraged and supported in your own spiritual journey.
So here I am as a grandmother, starting my 4th career and loving every minute of it.
It matters not what be thy lot, so love doth guide. For storm or shine, pure peace is thine. Love looseth me and lifteth me. I am takes thrall. Their life is light and wisdom might, and God is all. The centuries break, the earthbound wake, God's glorified, who doth his will, his likeness still, he satisfied.
And now for a part of the meeting I've really been looking forward to, our inspirational speaker. It is my great pleasure to introduce Joan Hellmund, a Christian Science practitioner in Fort Collins, a friend of Wide Horizon, and certainly a friend of Christian Science nursing. In addition to her full-time practice, Joan is the first reader in the Fort Collins Christian Science Church, which role she took on immediately following a stint as a Sunday school teacher for the older high school and college students. Joan served the Mother Church for nearly a decade in the Committee on Publication office. She is also active as a writer and poet, and has the poet's gifts for keen observation and a graceful turn of phrase. But truly a defining characteristic of Joan is her great love for God, for the Bible, and for the teachings and practice of Christian Science. Please join me in welcoming Joan Hellmund.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the gracious introduction, and to you and the other board members for the many hours of prayer and work you have donated to this healing facility. Thanks to all the Christian Science nurses, administrators, staff, the volunteers and donors that support Wide's healing mission. It's a privilege to join with you today at Wide Horizon's annual meeting to explore together how we can meet and are meeting the needs before us as laborers, together and together with God. As a citation from a recent Bible lesson states, "For we are laborers together with God," 1 Corinthians 3:9. There's no question, as this meeting's theme, "Today hath need of thee," attests, that our family and friends, our church and our world, has need of each and every one of us as laborers, workers, together, not as isolated, solitary ideas, working with God. I just discovered that Brian Boettiger, Wide Horizon's executive director, even has this 1 Corinthians verse at the bottom of his emails. So there really is one mind. In Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, our leader, Mary Baker Eddy, states as the first tenet, as adherents of truth, we take the inspired word of the Bible as our sufficient guide to eternal life. Hymn 251 characterizes the Bible as our chart and compass. So let's use the experiences of several people, Jesus, Moses, Caleb and Joshua, Nehemiah, and the parable of the Good Samaritan, along with the Bible-inspired secret, and the example and experiences of many of you, to explore together how we can even more consistently meet the human need through fulfilling our individual parts and laboring together more consistently, joyfully, and effectively, whether as friend, Christian Science nurse, practitioner, church, or family member. Jesus stated our common purpose when he recognized early on at age 12, quote, "I must be about my Father's business." That is our shared or common purpose, whether as patient, church or family member, Christian Science nurse or practitioner. The effective and supportive power of that understanding can be seen in Moses' experience, recounted in Exodus 17. He needed help. His army was fighting with Amalek. When he raised his hands, Israel prevailed. When he grew tired, his hands drooped, and Amalek prevailed. When his two companions, Aaron and Hur, saw this, they held up Moses' arms. Then his hands were steady until the going down of the sun, and Israel was victorious. Their support wasn't just personal. They were each doing their part, being about their Father's business for the greater good. Maintaining that God-directed focus as we each strive to do our part is essential. It allows one to draw on God's sustaining strength to fulfill one's part without resentment and without creating a sense of personal obligation or feeling of neediness or inadequacy in those we are assisting. It frees all involved a personal sense, personal obligation, dependence, or hierarchy, and it contributes to healing and glorifying God. Our field has a long history of such scientific and Christly healing support. Our family caught a glimpse of this in action many years ago. I was a young mother with a new infant and a toddler living in an older house. While using an old gas stove, it malfunctioned, setting my clothes on fire and burning me. Turning immediately to God as I rolled on the ground to put out the flames, I felt a calm and soothing presence, washing away much of the fear and most of the evidence of burning on my face and arms, although my midsection remained injured. I was able to call a local practitioner for help, and she called a Christian Science nurse to assist me and a nearby church member to care for our children until my husband could get home. Their responses and their loving and fearless standpoint supported and witnessed to a full healing made a huge difference. The church friend came without questions, and our sons naturally went with her because they already knew and loved her. She was just continuing to express her love. The Christian Science nurse was unflappable and confident of healing, and confident in her ability to do what was needed in the emergency. Seeing she wasn't shaken by the human picture or the suffering in front of her and was utterly confident of healing did much to quell the pain and remaining fear. She was also patient with me, cutting away the clothing, dressing the wounds, and showing me how to dress them without looking at them. I'm deeply grateful and appreciative of Christian Science nurses' ability to fearlessly see through the graphic pictures of accident, disease, or pain, while taking the practical human steps to care for those in need. Their willingness and spiritually honed ability to do this are a precious gift to us all and a powerful aid to healing. While the injury took several weeks and some vital spiritual lessons learned to fully heal, after that first day or two, I could do all that was needed without others noticing. The natural expectation of healing from all involved, including the church friend, my husband, the practitioner, and the Christian Science nurse, rather than sympathy or fear or burden, made the healing difference. Like Moses and his friends, the healing came as we all did our needed part, focusing on glorifying God and supporting healing. As many of you listening can attest, that kind of focus on doing our unique part to support healing through laboring together, impersonally and expectantly, glorifying God, continues to be expressed here and now. I saw a beautiful example of this at Wide Horizon this summer when I was visiting a dear friend. A young Christian Science nurse lovingly did what was needed to care for my friend, voicing truths gently but strongly as she did so, reminding my friend of her true nature rather than reacting to her behavior or being frightened by her pain. When she needed help, another Christian Science nurse quickly came to support and assist her, and to offer support to me as a visitor as well, with consistent, unrushed, and practical love. Over the years as I visited this friend and others, I've seen so many evidences of staff caring and laboring together to support healing by expressing the wisdom to let the divine mind rather than mortal mind's demands, guide their actions and responses. This spiritual discernment, too, is crucial to healing. Experienced Christian Science nurses and practitioners can teach us much about how to identify whether the demands are legitimate or whether they're mortal mind's ploys, and the appropriate God-directed response. As Mrs. Eddy observes in Science and Health, in a world of sin and sensuality hastening to a greater development of power, it is wise earnestly to consider whether it is the human mind or the divine mind which is influencing one. Is it mortal mind or fear, human will or sympathy that is insistently demanding attention? Or is it spiritual intuition that prompts a needful and compassionate response to human need? As many of us, whether as parents or caregivers, teachers, or workers, have discovered, there are times to be fully present and immediately responsive, and other times to be alert while giving the child or patient or fellow worker time to respond to their own angels. I also witnessed many compassionate, thoughtful, and healing actions by visitors, volunteers, Christian Science nurses, and staff that nurture this healing atmosphere. Just walking in the door at Wide, one can sense a remarkable sense of peace and love expressed. These Christian Science nurses respond to an angel thought to add a pill or take one away, try a new way to assist a patient with mobility, an appetizing recipe to whet their appetite, or just the right idea or hymn at the right time. The Christian Science nurses have also been a huge help in taking the time to show many families, including ours, how to better care for loved ones at home and what temporary aids, like walkers or commodes, might support their healing progress. And then there's the other actions, which many of you have also taken, including taking patients and residents outside, holding their hand, singing or reading to or with them, sharing a moment of laughter or a pet's antics, helping them with computers, remembering them with a note, colorful flowers, friendly greetings, hymns, and yes, even chocolates. Of course, much of the support extended by members happens in their local communities. The member who carries his tools with him in the car to lift worry by helping with needed repairs. The eager driver who takes homebound members out to see fall leaves or spring flowers, or even share an impromptu picnic at the local drive-thru. Some of you have quietly supported members for extended periods of time by taking them on grocery runs, providing rides to church or home-cooked meals once a week or two, helping with errands, or including them in holiday celebrations. During the pandemic, when outside visits to many assisted living residents were cut off, many members found new ways to love and support those residents. One of my favorites was a couple who regularly called with their cell phone from outside the assisted living building and waved to the resident while speaking with them by phone. Another family alerted staff to get their friend to a window as they walked by with a big sign and balloons with the resident's name and "Hi, thinking of you." And there are times when some of you have helped lessen the fear or lift the pain by answering a late night phone call or staying with someone overnight. One member shared that one night she was so frightened and lonely and in pain, she decided to call 911 and go to the hospital just so she wouldn't be alone anymore. But she got an unexpected call from a fellow member who came right over and stayed the night with her. And by morning, the pain and fear had subsided considerably. All of these experiences illustrate how important it is to hear and act on angel messages and the difference these actions can make, healing differences. Each of these actions and many countless other selfish, unselfish acts that you are aware of are evidence of what Mrs. Eddy described in miscellaneous writings. a little more grace, a motive made pure, a few truths tenderly told, a heart softened, a character subdued, a life consecrated, would restore the right action of the mental mechanism and make manifest the movement of body and soul in accord with God. These actions are natural expressions of being about our Father's business, using in His service the particular gifts or abilities we have. They make a healing difference to the individuals involved, their friends and family, and to the broader healing atmosphere. But we might naturally ask, how do Christian Science nurses or friends, practitioners or family caregivers maintain this consistent sense of compassionate purpose in difficult situations, or those that stretch on over a long period of time? And how can we more readily go and do likewise, faithfully and cheerfully? Our leader addresses the very question when she writes in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, page 82. In a world of sin and sensuality hastening to a greater development of power, it is wise earnestly to consider whether it is the human mind or the divine mind which is influencing one. The children of Israel faced a similar dilemma as recounted in Numbers 13 and 14. Moses, at God's direction, had sent out representatives from the 12 tribes to scout out the promised land. All of them saw the great promise and provisions of the land, as well as the challenges, including the giants, the several tribes of aggressors. The key is what they chose to focus on. 10 of the scouts focused on the giants, the obstacles or challenges. Caleb and Joshua focused on the God who overcomes the giants or obstacles. Unfortunately, the children of Israel were influenced by those voicing the fears and doubts of the human mind, rather than confidence in the divine mind. We have that same choice to make in every challenge we face. Are we going to focus on the giants, the challenges or obstacles to healing, or on the God who overcomes the giants? That choice makes all the difference, as one can see throughout the Bible and our own experiences. Science and Health states it this way: your influence for good depends upon the weight you throw into the right scale. The good you do and embody gives you the only power obtainable. Focusing on God, putting our weight on the right side, also ensures the outcome as stated in Science and Health. Fixing your gaze on the realities supernal, you will rise to the spiritual consciousness of being, even as a bird which has burst from the egg and preens its wings for a skyward flight. As you know, the children of Israel did not make the wise choice, choosing to act on their human doubts and fears rather than relying on God. And Caleb and Joshua, having voiced their choice to continue focusing on God who overcomes the giants, they also chose to accompany the children of Israel on their journey in the wilderness while maintaining their own God-given focus. And in so doing, their experience is reassuring, as Caleb noted to Joshua in Joshua 14. Thou knowest the thing that the Lord said unto Moses, the man of God, concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea. 40 years old was I when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to espy out the land. And I brought him word again, as it was in mine heart. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt, but I wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old, and yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now. In compassionately deciding to journey with and support the children of Israel on the path they had chosen, while holding on to his own steadfast reliance on God, Caleb is not penalized. He loses neither his strength nor his opportunity 40 years later to enter the promised land. What a reassuring promise to those church, friends, or family members who choose to continue supporting and accompany those who have a long-standing need or who make different lifestyle choices or care choices while upholding their own spiritual standpoint. A much-loved hymn, hymn 278, Pilgrim on Earth, expresses the standpoint and prayer that he and we might well make in choosing to accompany those who have chosen a different path than we might personally choose. The first two verses read, Pilgrim on earth, home and heaven are within thee, heir of the ages and child of the day, cared for, watched over, beloved and protected, walk thou with courage each step of the way. Truthful and steadfast, though trials betide thee, ever one thing do thou ask of the Lord, grace to go forward, wherever he guide thee, gladly obeying the call of his word. These prayerful words affirm one's identity as an heir and child of God, provide assurance that one is loved and protected, and indicate one's pledge to go forward courageously wherever God guides, with obedience and grace and good humor. Thus far, through the Bible stories and modern experiences, we've explored our purpose to be about our Father's business and our God-impelled focus on the God who overcomes the giants, rather than focusing on the giant obstacles or challenges. Perhaps the next question is, how can we best identify and meet the challenges that attempt to derail our usefulness and our support of healing, our own or others? Here, a closer look at Nehemiah's familiar experience in identifying meeting many forms of resistance to his God-given work is instructive. He certainly exemplifies praying without ceasing. First, on hearing of the trying times of his brethren in Jerusalem, rather than despair, Nehemiah is moved with compassion and turns to God in prayer for mercy and help as he goes before the king. He prays again, in Nehemiah 2, for wisdom while speaking with the king, to know how to respond to the king's query. Moving or acting with compassion is frequently a component of Jesus' healings as well, whether in feeding the multitude, healing the blind, or many of his other healings. We too can pray to act with compassion, or even sometimes pray for compassion when we feel it lacking in our own consciousness or our own experience. And we can continue to turn to God prayerfully at every step, rather than praying at the outset and then giving up or sitting by or willfully pushing through. There may even be times when we need a physical reminder, whether a verse or hymn copied and put in our pocket, or something visual to remind us to support with compassion. A number of years ago, when caring for an older relative, there were many demands throughout each night. Concerned that in my sleepiness I would respond harshly, I at various times put a bracelet or a rubber band on my wrist where I could see it, as a tangible reminder to respond with tenderness and compassion while assisting with these many late-night needs. Second, discerning the resistance from Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite after he had shared the king's letters regarding plans to rebuild the wall with the governors. Nehemiah quietly cherishes his plans, going by night with a few trusted men to determine the state of disrepair of the walls, and doing so before inviting residents to join in rebuilding the wall. When he does invite them to join him, he first shares the evidence of support God has already provided. Then I told them of the hand of my God which was good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. He also shared the evidences of provision, the supplies they had to rebuild the wall that had been given him. Third, when Nehemiah and his efforts are laughed at and scorned, he doesn't take it personally, but responds in Nehemiah 2 by identifying himself as a servant of God, and God as the source of their success, just as David did when he prepared to take on Goliath. He also specifically denounces error's claims. The God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we as servants will arise and build. But ye have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. Carolyn Holt's article, Evil, No Portion, Nor Right, Nor Memorial, from the March 1982 Journal, reprinted in the Anthology of Classic Articles, Volume 3, is helpful in further exploring these ideas. Fourth, Nehemiah doesn't do it alone. He enlists others to do their part, Nehemiah 3, and recognize the contribution of each one. Fifth, when their work is again insulted, even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall break down their stone wall. He responds by appealing again to God and continues with others to build the wall, for the people had a mind to work. Science and Health helpfully identifies the destructive strategies of error in the definition of adversary in the glossary of Science and Health. An adversary is one who opposes, denies, disputes, not one who constructs and sustains reality and truth. Jesus said of the devil, he was a murderer from the beginning. He is a liar and the father of it. Throughout her writings, our leader shows us how to discern and defeat the adversary in its many guises, including the familiar but powerful admonition in Science and Health, page 392. Stand porter at the door of thought, admitting only such conclusions as you wish realized in bodily results. You will control yourself harmoniously. When the condition is present which you say induces disease, whether it be air, exercise, heredity, contagion, or accident, then perform your office as porter and shut out these unhealthy fears and thoughts. Exclude from mortal mind the offending errors, then the body cannot suffer from them. 6. Whether the challenge or resistance seems to come from within us or those closest to us or from without, we can trust that as we continue to seek God in prayer, we will be alerted to the challenges and guided in the practical steps to defeat these challenges, just as Nehemiah was. See Nehemiah 4. When he learned that their adversaries planned to murder them and thus stop the work, he directs his fellow workers not to be afraid, but to keep their high purpose in mind. Be not afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. And then, with God's guidance, he adjusts the work in order to respond to the new challenges. They which builded on the wall, and they which bear burdens, with those that laid it, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, every one had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. Like Nehemiah and his fellow workers, in order to meet challenges to healing, we too need to remember our own healing purpose and defend our healing work, and continue working, undisturbed amid the jarring testimony of the material senses. Many have found Milton Simon's familiar article, Undisturbed, that appeared originally in the March 26, 1955 Christian Science Sentinel, helpful in this regard. Error often tries to upset us, tempting us to believe it is our problem or our fault when challenges arise. It is much easier to defeat error when we see it as impersonal, or as a burglar attempting to rob us of our peace or healing. Why is it helpful to identify error as a burglar? It's a reminder not to waste time blaming oneself or others, any more than you would blame yourself if a burglar attempted to break into your home. But instead, turn to God, call for prayerful help from others if needed, and continue to work. An experienced practitioner once counseled, when you think you can't do or take any more, just commit, with God's help, to doing a bit more. Often with that humble obedience step, the error breaks. I found this to be true many times in healing work. 7th, what if we, like Nehemiah 6, are repeatedly tempted by error to leave the work when progress is being made or the full healing is in sight? Nehemiah's response in Nehemiah 6, 3 and 4 is instructive. He responds to error. I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Error often presents more resistance when healing is at hand, but knowing its strategies, we can refuse to be distracted or stop the work. Our leader counsels in Science and Health. The discoverer of Christian Science finds the path less difficult when she has a high goal always before her thoughts than when she counts her footsteps in endeavoring to reach it. When the destination is desirable, expectation speeds our progress. The struggle for truth makes one strong instead of weak, resting instead of wearying one. And of course, as Nehemiah and the others prayed, turned to God for guidance, listened for God's directives, adjusted course, and continued working, each doing his own part, the wall was finished, the healing complete. Thanks for your patience. I realize this has been a rather extended look at a familiar story, but one that many of us have found exceeding pertinent in healing. Undoubtedly, there are many accounts in the Bible and Mrs. Eddy's writings that have contributed to healings which each of you could share. That's what the periodicals and Wednesday evening testimony meetings are for. Another account I found particularly instructive is James' own recounting of how he met and prayerfully overcame the delays in the building of the Mother Church, published on pages 60 through 62 of the First Church of Christ Scientist and Miscellany. I encourage you to check it out, looking specifically for how he worked and how his standpoint shifted to what cannot God do with healing results. So far today we've explored our purpose to be about our Father's business, our focus on God who overcomes the giants rather than focusing on the giants, and the spiritual tools from Nehemiah's life and others that help us discern and defeat error's myriad challenges and distractions to healing. Like many of you, I find the hymns an incredible strength, encouragement, and help along the way. In fact, I turn to them many times each day for sustaining spiritual snacks to encourage, instruct, and uplift thought. I learned this from my mother-in-law's example. She carried hymn 148, torn out of her hymnal, in her pocket for several years. Many in this field will remember Arno Preller. His father wrote words to a beautiful, reassuring hymn, 476, which seemed an apt way to conclude this section. Fearful heart, put all your cares completely in your dear God's hands. Love feeds you with her great strength, and your faith will always stand. Now, as you go safely forward, walk securely in love's grace. Give to God the praise and glory. Fear and doubt have no more place. Longing heart, don't give up hope when threats of evil overwhelm. Love now keeps her promise true. God's sure hand is at the helm. Bringing joy when all seems darkness, God will keep you safe secure. You go forward, loved and peaceful. Victory is always sure. Let's explore one last checkpoint as we seek to fulfill our God-given purpose by helping others without sacrificing our own work and relationship to God. It is found in Jesus' familiar parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10:30-37, and Jesus' correction of Martha in the story that follows, verses 38-42. In the first account, 2 men passed by the man in need without helping. The third, a Samaritan, responding with compassion, stopped to meet the man's immediate need by taking care of him in this emergency and leaving provision for the man's ongoing care until he returned. Meeting the emergency may have delayed the Samaritan's initial journey, but as the parable also shows, it did not prevent him from continuing on with his work or purpose once the traveler's initial need was met. Jesus amplifies the story in the account that just follows the parable by reminding Martha, who had been scurrying around to get things ready, while resenting Mary's taking the time to learn from Jesus. Jesus responds to her and Mary, "Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." Our family saw multiple evidences of this need to help while retaining our own focus in a rather humorous way. When our sons were teenagers, there was a 45-minute commute to school. If we had to leave late due to a legitimate need, an urgent practice call, a neighbor that needed a walk or driveway shoveled immediately, etc., then even if we left later and drove, obeying the speed limit, they would not be late for school. However, if we were late leaving because of dawdling or poor planning, they would arrive at school late. Undoubtedly, many of you have had similar experiences where when one takes the time to meet an immediate need, work deadlines are somehow met, or people you are meeting with are also late, or one feels refreshed even if one has stayed up all night helping another. In all the myriad ways that God's grace, God's law of adjustment, is expressed in our experience. This has been a helpful checkpoint, a reminder to me to take time initially to pray in order to discern when help is needed and how to help, but not let that help become an excuse for avoiding my own ongoing work or spiritual growth, nor by taking over or creating dependence in those we are assisting. Today has need of each one of us. Mrs. Eddy amplifies this need for balance when she points to Jesus' example as a guide. Science and Health, page 18. Jesus of Nazareth taught and demonstrated man's oneness with the Father, and for this we owe him endless homage. His mission was both individual and collective. He did life's work aright, not only in justice to himself, but in mercy to mortals, to show them how to do theirs, but not to do it for them, nor to relieve them of a single responsibility. If this idea is striking a chord, you might also want to explore Alison Finney's August 6, 1984 Christian Science Sentinel editorial, "One Idea Needed Above All." And when the way is challenging, the Bible repeatedly shows us we have a secret weapon, praise. I like to think that gratitude is thanks for what God has done and is doing, but praise is thanksgiving for who God is, his nature and character. Praise is powerful and contributes greatly to healing and spiritual growth. It also lifts thought. Through our practice of praise, we draw closer to God. Susan Mack, in her delightful hymn, 595, expresses praise as a needed response in every situation: sorrow, weariness, discouragement, business, and even when things are going swimmingly. She concludes, "Praise the Creator. Let all within me sing, for that's what I am made to do, and goodness it will bring. For that's what we are made to do. Let all the earth now sing. Today has need of you, each one of you, as we each seek to be about our Father's business, to focus on the God who overcomes the giants, to deal with resistance and challenges impersonally, prayerfully, compassionately, and immediately, while continuing to nurture our own spiritual growth. We can continue to make a healing difference in our world. I'm grateful for the healing ministry of Wide Horizon and your unique part in this healing work, wherever you find yourself. Let's let our leader, Mary Baker Eddy, have the last word from Miscellaneous Writings. Beloved students, you have entered the path. Press patiently on. God is good, and good is the reward of all who diligently seek God. Your growth will be rapid if you love good supremely and understand and obey the way-shower, who, going before you, has scaled the steep ascent of Christian Science, stands upon the mount of holiness, the dwelling place of our God, and bathes in the baptismal font of eternal love. As you journey and betimes sigh for rest beside the still waters, ponder this lesson of love. Learn its purpose, and in hope and faith, where heart meets heart reciprocally blessed, drink with me the living waters of the spirit of my life purpose, to impress humanity with a genuine recognition of practical, operative Christian Science. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan, for your inspiration today. Today certainly had need of you. And thank you all for tuning in and joining us for Wide Horizon's 2021 annual meeting. We're going to finish out today's session with hymn 218, our namesake hymn. I'll read the fourth verse. The freer step, the fuller breath, the wide horizon's grander view, the sense of life that knows no death, the life that maketh all things new. We're so grateful for you. Thank you for being here.